Everyone all over social media is always looking for those Patek Philippe's, Rolexes, APs, and even Richard Milles. But not only are these watches difficult to get at retail, they are really expensive. Today, I'm going to look at more affordable alternatives to some of the most popular watches on the market. Hi, I'm Craig from Wrist Enthusiast. Today's video is all about those affordable alternatives to some of the hottest and most expensive watches on the market. I'm going to talk about some really hyped up watches, and then I'll give you 2 or 3 less expensive options for each watch. And I'm also happy to answer any questions you have in the comments. All I ask is that if you've been enjoying my videos, to subscribe to my channel and give this video a like. Now let's get started. First, I wanted to talk about some alternatives to probably the most famous watch in the world, the Rolex Submariner. As you know, the Submariner is Rolex's dive and tool watch. It's probably the most faked watch in the world, to the point where half of the subs you see in the wild are probably fake. But if you want something that gives you a similar look at a fraction of the cost, here are some options. The Tudor Black Bay is Tudor's vintage-inspired dive watch. Introduced in 2012, it's become the most popular watch in the brand's catalog. And while you can get the Black Bay with different complications and different materials, it's the black bezel Black Bay that I think is just a great alternative to Submariner. First of all, Tudor is actually owned by Rolex, so when you're buying a Tudor, you know you're getting something of extremely high quality. And there are actually a couple of reasons I prefer the Black Bay to the Submariner. First, the vintage inspiration, including the gilt dial and rivet bracelet, are nice touches. But the fact that the Black Bay is available in 3 different sizes, 41mm, 39mm, and 37mm, gives you options that the Submariner doesn't. The Black Bay retails for between $3,900 and $4,100 on steel bracelet, depending on the size. Now, if you're looking for an alternative to the sub at under $1,000, my choice would be the Seiko Prospex SB101. Yes, there are less expensive options than the SB101, but they either come with a solar movement or less water resistance. The SB101 has 200 meters of water resistance, and it's just really slick. But beware, this Seiko is large. At 45mm, it's a good 4mm wider than the Submariner. But at $850, it's a lot of watch for the money. The Patek Philippe Calatrava may not be as popular as the Nautilus, but the 2022 edition of the 5226G really just breathed new life into the line. This Calatrava is white gold, but it clearly has a field watch aesthetic, including vintage indexes and a textured gray gradient dial. But at just over $40,000, it's quite expensive. But don't worry, I have a couple more affordable options for you. My first alternative in the above $1,000 price point is a Longines Spirit in titanium. While the material is modern, the look is a vintage field watch. Like the Patek, it has applied indexes, and the Spirit's gilt dial is just very attractive to me. At 42mm, it is a little bit larger than the 40mm Calatrava, but wearable by most. It retails for $2,750 on NATO style strap and $3,225 on titanium bracelet. My under $1,000 alternative to the Calatrava is actually a personal favorite, the Hamilton Khaki Field Murph. And I'm wearing the 38mm version right now. Offered in both 42mm and 38mm, the watch was originally designed to be a focal point in the movie Interstellar, which is also probably my favorite movie. Fans loved it, so Hamilton produced a watch, first in 42mm and then in 38mm. A standard field watch, the Murph has a gilt dial with vintage Arabic indexes. It's Swiss-made with a power reserve of 80 hours. And at $895 for the 38mm version and $995 for the 42mm version, it's just a great option for those who want the Calatrava look without spending a ton of money. One of the most sought-after watches on the market these days is the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak. Originally designed by Gerald Genta in 1972, AP now makes dozens of variations, all commanding very high, probably above market prices. And because of the hype behind the Royal Oak, many brands actually make watches that are clearly influenced by the iconic design. So which pieces do I recommend for those looking for the Royal Oak look without the associated price tag? Well, the watch collectors community seems to be pretty divided by the Maurice Lacroix Acon because its design is clearly influenced by the Royal Oak. I will probably get less pushback here because this video really is a get the look for less video, so similarities are appreciated. And while the Acon clearly has Royal Oak influences in the texture dial, the bezel, and especially the bracelet, I think it can stand on its own. While the bracelet is as close to a Royal Oak bracelet as I've seen, The bezel isn't octagonal, and the triangle pattern on the dial is interesting. Best part is the Acon is offered in many different sizes, colorways, and complications. But my favorite is the 39mm with blue dial. I mean, that's the closest you'll get to the Royal Oak Jumbo reference 16202. This variation of the Acon will set you back $2,300. If you are looking for a Swiss-made Royal Oak alternative at under $1,000, the Tissot PRX Powermatic 80 is a great choice. The watch is Swiss-made with an automatic movement. In terms of style, to me, it's kind of like a stripped-down version of the Royal Oak. While the bezel and bracelet aren't iconic like the Royal Oak, the general shape of the watch reminds me of the Royal Oak, and the waffle dial pattern reminds me a lot of the Royal Oak's Grand Tapisserie dial. And at $725, you get a lot of watch and style for a great price. While the Submariner may be the most recognizable Rolex, the Daytona is probably the most sought after. And while steel Daytonas retail for around $14,000, they are almost impossible to get at retail, unless you have a relationship with your retailer and some serious purchase history. To top it off, I see Daytonas being sold for around $30,000 on the secondary market. That's a more than 100% markup. Luckily, I have 3 different options for affordable Daytona alternatives. I have already featured one Longines in this video, so why not another? The Longines Conquest Chronograph. This is a true racing chronograph in the vein of the Daytona, and like the Daytona, the Conquest has a ceramic tachometer bezel. And the Panda and reverse Panda dial variations of the Conquest are reminiscent of some of the vintage Daytonas of past. The reverse Panda version of the Conquest, that is black dial with white subdials, reminds me a lot of the new Rolex Daytona Le Mans, which is probably the most coveted modern Rolex currently on the market. The reverse Panda Conquest even has the word tachometer in red. On the Le Mans, the 100 is in red. I am just a very big fan of the Longines Conquest. At $3,650, it's not necessarily affordable, but it is a big step down in price from a Daytona. And it's available right now. That's gotta be worth something. If you've watched my videos, you'll know that I'm a big fan of Baltic. The French micro brand just seems to always get it right. And if you are looking for a more vintage-inspired alternative to the Daytona, the Tri-Compacts would be my recommendation. The Tri-Compacts is offered in both Panda and reverse Panda dial configurations, and really just remind me of the reference 6239 Newman Daytonas. Instead of screw-down pushers, the watch has pump pushers, and the bezel is even aluminum. And like the 6239, the Tri-Compacts has a manual line Swiss movement. So if you're looking for an affordable alternative to a $100,000 plus Newman Daytona, you can pick up the Baltic Tri-Compacts for just under $1,800. I wanted to include an under $1,000 option here as well, and my pick is the Laurier Gemini. Laurier notes that this watch pays tribute to not only the Newman Daytona reference 6263, but the Heuer, Octavia, and the Universal Geneve Compacts. And I can see all 3 in the design. While the Daytona has 3 subdials, the Gemini is a bicompax, meaning it only has 2 subdials. So it isn't an exact recreation of the Daytona, and people probably won't mistake it for a Daytona when it's on your wrist. But it is a well-made chronograph with a lot of style for just $500. The last watch I wanted to discuss some alternatives for isn't a single model in particular, but alternatives to the brand in general. I want to get into some alternatives to Richard Mille watches. Richard Mille watches are pretty divisive in the industry, with people either loving them or hating them. Regardless of what you think, they are big, bold, and make a statement. So what do I think are good alternatives? Let's get into them. The first watch I want to talk about might come as a surprise, but hear me out. I really like the Doxa Sub 300 Carbon as an RM alternative. I know they aren't open worked like pretty much every RM, but there are a lot of similarities there. They come in a variety of bold colors like orange and turquoise on rubber straps and in carbon fiber cases. And the case shape, while not to know like a Richard Mille, is unique and somewhat reminiscent of the RM shape. Overall, Doxa is also a great brand with a ton of heritage. The Sub 300 Carbon retails for $3,890. The next watch I recommend is the Rado True Square Skeleton. While the Doxa didn't have an openwork dial, that is an important part of the overall design aesthetic of an RM. The Rado True Square Skeleton has a skeletonized dial in a unique square case shape. While it's not a dead ringer for an RM, I wanted to provide some interesting alternatives that, while not exact copies, have a similar feel. And Rado makes a really high-end Swiss watch. You can find the Rado True Skeleton for $2,600 and up. Now, if you're looking for something that's very close to an RM that doesn't break the bank, the Siga Design Series Z Edge would be my choice. Siga Design is a Chinese brand but they do have some serious bona fides. Their Blue Planet model won at GPHG, making Siga the first Chinese brand to ever win at the event. The Series Z Edge is clearly not on the same level as the Blue Planet, but it does have a tonneau-shaped case and the dial is skeletonized. So it clearly has that RM look. Siga offers the watch in a lot of different finishes, including PVD, gold-plated, titanium, and steel, so you'll surely find something that you like. And the best part is, it's incredibly affordable, with retail starting at just $279. So those are the watches I think are great, less expensive alternatives to some of the hot watches currently on the market. Are there any watches that you'd add that I didn't discuss? Let me know in the comments. And once again, if you've enjoyed this video, make sure to like it and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.